All right, everybody please rise. That's our second bell for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Dr. Maya Jurisic, Vice President of Medical and Medical Director at Concentra Strategic Accounts, will provide our invocation.
Dear Rotarians and guests, let's take a minute to reflect on the state of our world. Last year at this time, we were experiencing a summer of discontent, our lives much changed by the pandemic and suffused with the fear and grief that accompanied the loss of so many lives. This summer, we're seeing a return to normal life. For example, spectators attending sporting events, including America's favorite pastime, baseball. But let's keep in mind that the coronavirus is still with us and taking advantage of every opportunity to reimpose its dominance and diminish our lives yet again. While we have hope that we'll continue on our journey towards normal, prayer is needed, as is a commitment to action. As Rotarians, we are dedicated to promoting truth, and so should do what we can to dispel the misinformation about COVID and vaccines. Another of our guiding principles is to act in ways that are beneficial to all, and right now, nothing would be more beneficial to our community, our country, and the world than for many more people to be vaccinated. As Rotarians, as we go forward, let us act every day in ways that will further the likelihood of that happening. Amen.
Thank you, Maya. And thank you to all our rotating sponsors whose logos ran on the PowerPoint before lunch. Today, we'd like to highlight our newest sponsor, Strang Incorporated, represented in Rotary by Matt Matson. Strang is an award-winning integrated architecture, engineering, interior design, and planning firm that uses an inclusive approach to provide exceptional design and the most unique and challenging projects. Here's a video about Strang and their partnership with Rotary.
There are several reasons why it's appropriate. Rotary's values align very nicely with Strang's values and culture. When you look at the four-way test and you think about those questions, are questions that align with Strang culture.
Strang is an integrated design firm. We have in-house services, including architecture, engineering, interiors, a lot of specialty services. Our culture is probably defined by what we call design synchronicity. And design synchronicity is really the way we work together as a team with all these resources under one roof. That's a collaborative design culture.
Because Rotary is based on relationships, and really that's the foundation of the organization. The same is true here at Strang as well. It's about the relationship that we have, not only with each other, but also with our potential clients and our existing clients. And that's certainly a value that Rotary has, and one that we also align very closely with.
You know, community involvement is part of our culture, and being part of Rotary allows us to connect with business leaders in the community, and they're doing a lot of good work on their own, but it's just being part of that conversation and getting to know the people, that are doing great things in the community. Rotary is just a very consistent way of maintaining that connection.
And now more than ever, it's important for us to support our service organizations, and particularly those service organizations that are part of the fabric of our communities. Communities need leaders, they need leadership, and we need people who are willing to roll up their sleeves, not only just write a check, but also roll up their sleeves and do the work of the community. And Rotary certainly has done that. That's the impression of the brand that I see of Rotary. It's a very strong brand. It's a brand that's been around for 100 years, right? And so it's something that I think has been embraced by American culture.
Organization with video, please contact Mary. Again, I'd like to welcome our virtual audience. It means a lot to us that you're here today. And we'd like to welcome some of the guests with us here in the room. Please stand when I call your name. Monica Santiago, Northwestern Mutual. Andy Mayashiba, Shore West Realtors. Josh Rolling, Foley and Lardner. Tyler Barnes, Milwaukee Brewers. Ava Nikitovich, Wisconsin Circuit Court. Heather Smith, Milwaukee VA Medical Center. Nick Algiers, UW Parkside. Kyle Farrick, Midwest singer-songwriter. Jordan Gale, Buddy Squirrel LLC. And Shamika Tyler, Wisconsin Voices. Thank you for joining our club today. Please give them a round of applause. Today, we're excited to hear from our guest speaker, Rick Schlesinger from the division leading Milwaukee Brewers. But before we get to the program, we have some additional business to take care of. Kent Laverne, Chief Deputy Director Attorney at Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office, has a special announcement regarding our upcoming Tuesday luncheon at the Milwaukee Urban Stables.
Thanks, President Todd. Good afternoon. It's hard to believe that over 2 years ago, some of us were out in the rain and the mud for the groundbreaking of the MKE Urban Stables. Obviously, a lot's happened in the world since then, and without a lot of fanfare, just like a lot of other organizations, our board of directors, Steve Ethier is actually at the Brewers, one of our board of directors. Thank you for Steve, he's great. We had to recalibrate how we were going to move our operations forward. We did so, and without a lot of fanfare, several months ago, the Mounted Patrol of Milwaukee Police Department moved into the facility. They have 9 officers and 10 horses there. And just several weeks ago, we started the second phase of this project, second priority, which is providing therapy to, we're prioritizing first urban youth and veterans. And we now have 20 urban youth as clients for one-on-one psychotherapy going on now as well. And that's building every week. So we've got that second priority well underway. Our third priority is the enhancement of police community relations, and we're working on that piece of it right now as we speak. So a lot of work actually going on there very quietly, but we felt like because this group was so instrumental in moving the project forward 2, 3, 4 years ago, we'd really like to have you together for a special event. So 2 weeks from today, our meeting will take place at the Urban Stables, and it'll be a relaxed, informal style event, so we won't be in one big room. There will be places to sit, but there will be plenty of places to walk around and talk and stand. And Saz, as I'm told, will prepare a barbecue-style luncheon for us. There'll be staff members there, board members there to answer some questions as you roam around the place and see what it looks like. And I can tell you, if you haven't been to a meeting yet, and this is for the virtual audience right now, I would say this is a great opportunity to come out for a meeting, because you can be outside entirely if you want to be. There'll be plenty of room to spread out, and hopefully we'll have some beautiful weather that day. So I think you're going to very much like what you see. We've been pleased with the facility that you all helped contribute to building, and we're very excited about what's going to happen there. So 2 weeks from today, hope to see all of you there. And one postscript I would like to mention to you is that, of course, we all know that we lost Bill Durkin several months ago, and Bill, as you all know, was a real champion of this project. There will be a memorial service for Bill on Saturday, the Saturday preceding, Saturday, July 24th at 1 o'clock at the stables. That was actually a wish of his, that we could have a service for him there. So we're going to do that at 1 p.m. on the 24th, Saturday afternoon, so any of you would be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. As a heads up, the Ty-Rotarian tour of the Pabst Mansion scheduled for tomorrow morning, it's filled, but you can still sign up on the waiting list in case there are cancellations or somebody for some reason cannot attend. On the tables and in the email you received this morning, you can read more about the tour. Thanks to Avi Lank and Tony Fronda for putting this together. We're also happy to announce the return of our first in-person Rotary Social. First time in a little over 2 years since we were able to get together. So Milwaukee Yacht Club on Thursday, July 29th, starting at 5 p.m. You can join us for appetizers, a cash bar, and most importantly, an opportunity to catch up with Rotarians and enjoy our beautiful lakefront. No time like the present to think about how you'd like to participate in Rotary in the year ahead. You will find on your tables the committee participation sign-up forms. They were also emailed out yesterday. If you've missed it, please check your spam folders. Hopefully it's there. You can find copies on your tables. There's also extra copies on the table in the front hall. If you have questions about different committees, what they may do, please talk to Mary or feel free to reach out to the committee heads on those tables, ask questions, but please, take a look at how you'd like to participate and get involved. Here's a special announcement. While tragedy is unfolding in Ethiopia, Milwaukee Rotarians have rallied to help Dinette Ryle, an Ethiopian student studying nursing at Alverno College. Northern Ethiopia is currently experiencing one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. The conflict has turned Dawn Knight's family's world upside down, throwing her academic future into jeopardy. Dinette's father is a Rotarian at Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. He lost his job and the family home due to the conflict. One of the senior leaders in Evanston, through Rotary International, reached out to see how we may be able to help her. Our Rotary member, Mary Ballish, wrote a short profile that was in an email previously and should also be in the email that goes out later today to everybody. Generous club members have already stepped up and donated funds to help cover half of her tuition. If that's something you'd like to help with, please contact Mary in the Rotary office, and they can suggest ways where we may continue to support Dinette. Now, Jamie Reeve, Wealth Strategist and Senior President at Northern Trust, will introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon. It's my distinct pleasure to wear Frank Gimbel's pants to the Rotary Club today. I didn't call him ahead of time, but he did give me his blessing with a hearty, not socially distanced hug. It's my pleasure to welcome today's speaker, Rick Schlesinger, the President of Business Operations for the Milwaukee Brewers Baseball Club. So anything on the field isn't his domain. Everything off the field and at the ballpark is. A little bit about Rick before he joins us. And I didn't realize that he's a native son. He was born and raised in Bayside. He's a Badger, having graduated in 1983. Then he went to school for law at a small place out in Boston. He started his law career in LA, not with Corbin Burnson and company, but then he joined the Anaheim Angels in their club, worked there for 5 years before coming to Milwaukee, and he's been here for, I think, 19 seasons now. In his 19 seasons, there have been plenty of changes, of course. I understand there's a new name for the field, if you've been there. I think Rick was maybe involved in some of those negotiations and licensing agreements. And impressively, our club has garnered 2.5 million attendance each of the last 12 out of 13 years, I think. So that is to Rick and his team. He's joined as well today by his colleague, Tyler Barnes from the Milwaukee Brewers Baseball Club. Personal note, I asked him a couple interesting factoids. His favorite album, he knows that Paul McCartney is the one without shoes on the Beatles' Abbey Road. His bucket list travel destination would be South Africa. And I asked him, and without any worry, he responded, his favorite all-time sports star, Milwaukee Brewer first baseman, number 15, Cecil Cooper. Please join me in welcoming to the stage, Rick Schlesinger.
Thank you. We could use him in first base. It's a tough position to fill since Prince Fielder left us 10 years ago. Thanks for having me. It's great to always be here at the Rotary. I think it's been 4 or 5 years since I spoke, and I distinctly remember some really good probing questions. None of them were particularly easy, but I think that just speaks to the quality and the intellect of the gang. But I encourage you, after I hopefully don't bore you with my remarks, to ask questions, and please don't be shy about asking the tough ones. I can dodge them. I did go to law school, and I know how to not answer a question. What I thought I would do is talk a little bit about how we navigated through the pandemic last year and some of this year, and then talk about 2021 and what we're doing and sort of the things that make us optimistic, not only in terms of the team in the field, but also our business. And then again, open it up to questions. So we'll get going. First, we're sort of privileged to be talking about, the first place Brewers, but also the Milwaukee Bucks. I think we deserve to give them a clap for being in the NBA Finals. So if nothing else, the history of the Bucks and the Brewers, at least in the last 20 years, is we've been sort of close but not gotten there. We haven't really gotten to the World Series since 1982. I get reminded of that daily. And the Bucks had some great teams, but always seemed to run up against the Celtics or the 76ers. In recent years, Toronto and Miami. But this year, obviously, cutting through that wall and getting the NBA Finals. And so it's really exciting for the whole state to witness sort of a very incredible moment in Milwaukee and Wisconsin sports history. So we're all excited to see what happens, and I'm optimistic. And for us, obviously, to be at the All-Star break in first place, I had penciled us in to be several games more ahead than we are, but the Reds had other plans. But obviously, at the All-Star break, it's a good measure of where we are, and we've got a lot of excitement going into 21. But to just sort of look back in 2020, obviously, every business, everybody in this room was affected by COVID on a personal level, on a health level, on a financial level, and nothing can compare to losing loved ones or having ongoing health issues because of something that we're still trying to figure out where the genesis of it was. But so we take things in perspective. The Brewers, it was a very bad financial economic year for us last year, and I think we were joined with hundreds of thousands of companies and businesses and millions of people that suffered through it. We had to navigate through a lot because not only are we just one team, but we're a team in a league of 29 other teams. So we had to work with the other 29 teams to figure out how we were going to create some semblance of a 2020 season. We had to work with the Players Association, the union that represents all of the major league players. And obviously they had a very vested interest in what the season was going to look like, what the economics of that was going to look like, what the health protocols were going to look like, and what the rules of the game were going to be. We had to deal with a lot of our sponsors, our season seat holders, our national broadcast partners, certainly a lot of local, state, and federal health and governmental officials. So the end result was a truncated 60-game season with a lot of different rules, no fans, expanded postseason, and a lot of disconnect and disengagement between our organization and our fan base. And especially for a team like the Brewers, where we are so heavily dependent on attendance and people buying tickets and buying beer and buying T-shirts and parking, and all the things that go into coming to American Family Field, for us to lose that entire bucket of revenue was obviously pretty detrimental to the organization, pretty stressful. I feel an obligation not only to the fans and to our employees, but also to our ownership, to make sure that the business is running well. And when you're faced with sort of factors beyond your control, it's somewhat stressful. And there are things you can control, things you can't. Much of what we had in 2020 was not within our control, but that doesn't make it any less frustrating. So we had to navigate through a very strange season. The players, to a person, will tell you that the lack of fans was made it a very difficult scenario for them to play at an optimal level. And some of the players in baseball were able to overcome it and play at a high level. A lot of great players were not. And the fact is, they attribute it to the fact that there's no crowd reaction, there's no fan engagement. When you hit the ball, it echoed throughout the stadium. We literally had to pump in artificial crowd noise. Not so much to create an ambience, because Tyler and I were the only ones watching the games. So our attendance went from 41,000 to 2, but 0 because Tyler and I weren't paying to see the game. So it was really a paid attendance of 0. But you really wanted to have a buzz and an artificial sound so that the players couldn't necessarily hear what the opposing players were saying or what the catcher and the pitcher were saying, because literally, without that artificial noise, you could literally hear what the players were saying on the field. It was an eerie sort of experience where we're sitting up in the stands and you literally can hear the players talking. They're not yelling, they're talking, and you can hear them. And obviously, for competitive reasons, you don't want the opposing team to hear what you're telling the pitching coach on the mound, so we had to pump in noise. But that was just a little anecdote of what was a very strange season. So we sort of muddled through the 2020 season. You know, we finished under 500, but made the expanded postseason, so there's a little silver lining. But the biggest takeaway from the 2020 season for me is that we actually tied for first place in paid attendance, which we have never done at the Brewers. So my financial bonus plan with the team is tied to where we rank in paid attendance. So I had this great conversation with Mark Antonassi, our owner, in October last year, and said, "Hey, we finished tied for first. I think the bonus, you know, whatever you were thinking, triple it." That was a very short conversation. But clearly, you know, 2020 was just a very strange year for the players, for our employees, for our fans, for everybody that consumes, you know, live sports and who loves baseball. We had a lot of employees, part-time employees, who were not able to work. That was a very serious situation where a lot of people rely on the Brewers for their livelihood for the summer, and those jobs were gone. So, you know, a lot of pain, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of misery. And we've headed into this 2021 season with a lot of uncertainty. You know, could we have a regular season? Could we have fans in the stands? When could we have fans in the stands? What are the protocols? You know, what are the restrictions? And so we were navigating in the off season with a lot of unknowns, and it also happens to be the time when we do a lot of our selling. You know, we're selling season tickets, we're selling group tickets, we're selling sponsorships, and a lot of unknowns make it a much more difficult proposition for us. I will tell you that this community in this state, you know, no surprise, but tremendous support from the business community, tremendous support from our fans. So many of our season seat holders said, "Listen, I want to keep my money in account. If we can come to the ballpark, I want to do that. I don't want a refund. I want to keep my money in account. I want to have the chance to come and watch live baseball in 21, even if we don't know when or how." We had so few people ask for refunds. It was great. I mean, it was people who love baseball, who care about this organization, who are starved for watching games in person, which is how baseball is best consumed. In the business community, in terms of sponsorships, everybody stepped up. Everybody worked with us. You know, we had to come up with a lot of creative things in 2020 and had a plan for a lot of creativity in 2021 without knowing of what we're going to have in fans. So fast forward to spring. This year we were able to work with the county and the city health department and start with some fans. You know, opening day we had a sellout of 10,650 people. I'm glad my bonus isn't tied to the actual numbers, but that was the lowest opening day attendance, obviously, in our history, but better than 2020. But obviously our motivation, frankly, was to always try to get safely and effectively to higher numbers. So we started out at 25% capacity, fans in pods. You know, from my perspective, less than optimal, but still so much better than 2020. So we had at least fans in the stands, and what I did notice is the players reacted positively when we had a close play on the field. The fans were loud. We didn't have to pump in artificial noise, but we had 10,560 people cheering on the team, and it was just a great sort of milestone for us to have people there. And then ultimately, as the COVID data trended in the correct direction, I guess I can't say positive, but the correct direction, we were able to get to 50% capacity. And then for June 25, we were able to announce that we are at 100% capacity. So if you look at sort of what that means for us, it's 43 home games at full capacity, so basically half of a season. And again, for a team that relies so much on attendance and admission revenue, only have half your games where you can sell as many tickets as you have makes it a challenge. But the good news is as people are embracing the opportunity to come to games, we're seeing around the league a little bit of hesitancy for people wanting to come, and that's normal after people are still somewhat nervous and people were out of sync and they've got other things that they have to cram into 21, such as seeing family and traveling and going to lakes and doing all the things. We understand that we're sort of competing with attention for people. The good news is the numbers in our attendance are escalating. Our future sales for the balance of our 33 home games are very strong. So we're very excited to sort of see where those numbers are leading, and we actually are ahead of all of the metrics that I used 3 months ago when I report to ownership what I project to be our fiscal situation for 21. All of the measurements we're seeing are better, which is great. And it's a testament, frankly, to having a very fun team, a team that's winning. That always helps, makes my job a lot easier. It's a testament to frankly, that the people in Milwaukee and Wisconsin love coming to the ballpark. We try to make it a great experience, affordable experience, a clean experience, a safe experience. Tailgating is back. And frankly, we're getting back to where people can come to the ballpark and feel that it's back into 2019 and 2018 and 2017. Now, that being said, we also understand that there are things in a macro level that we're trying to figure out with baseball. Our games are long. We had a game on Sunday. We lost 3-1 in 9 innings, low scoring game. It took 4 hours. That's way too long. And I'm at every game, and I'm an impatient guy, and it was hard to watch 4 hours go by with very little hitting, and we lose the game on top of it. If we win, I'll live with the 4 hours. But 4 hours, and that was not a fun experience. It might be good for concession and beer sales. But I'd rather have a game be a little more crisper. So we know that there are a number of things we have to do, not only obviously in Milwaukee, but as an industry. We've got to figure out how to make the games move a little faster. We've got to figure out how to have more action. Right now, there's a lot of strikeouts. As you can see, we're a team that frankly strikes out a lot of players. We also, as hitters, tend to strike out a lot. So a lot of times there's not a lot of balls in play. And baseball needs to have more action to excite the younger generation, and frankly even the people like me who have loved baseball for their entire life. I want more action. We have a labor agreement coming up with the Players Association that expires in December 1. So interesting timing, but obviously we have to forge a healthy relationship with the players. The players are the reason fans come to watch our games. They're not coming to watch Rick Schlesinger. They're not coming simply to partake in beer and soda and peanuts and hot dogs, although that's part of it. They're coming to watch elite athletes perform at a high level. And we have to figure out how to sort of end the acrimony and the fighting among owners and players, and try to understand that the collective good for our sport is for there to be harmony in our labor relations and growing the game, marketing the game, and talking less about salaries and money and more about home runs and pennant races and all that kind of good stuff. We're also in a situation where the television market is undergoing tremendous changes. 10 years ago, everybody was subscribing to cable or satellite television. Now those numbers are declining, and obviously we have to figure out how to replace those lost viewers. A lot of people are going to streaming services, and we have to figure out how to reach those people. Our television audience, while our ratings are still very strong, the total television audience is declining both in Wisconsin and around the sports world, and we have to figure out how to arrest that, because in my view, there's a direct correlation between people watching the games on television or on streaming services, getting engaged, and then coming to the ballpark. And when we're seeing dips in television audiences, we're also seeing a little bit more challenges for our attendance. Again, we have to market our players. We have some of the most elite athletes in the world, and nobody's ever heard of them. Everybody knows who the top NBA players are. Everybody knows who Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are. A lot of our stars are known regionally, but they're not known nationally, and they're certainly not known internationally. So we're looking at how can we grow the game, how can we display the talents of our players, how can we become a true international sport? Obviously, we're very popular in Korea, very popular in Latin America, in Japan, but there's a lot of several billions of people that I think we need to figure out a way to get baseball and them together, and that's going to take generations, but we need to start doing that. Having said that, even with all the challenges that we have as a sport, baseball is still the most popular spectator sport in North America. As an industry, in a normal year, we're still going to have more than 70 million people attend games, hopefully 3 million at a normal year at American Family Field. We also have 35 to 38 million attending minor league games. So you're talking a huge amount of people attending games. And those that are not necessarily attending are still consuming the game. They're reading about the game. They're watching the game. They're streaming the game. All those are points of engagement that we need to, frankly, nurture and also monetize. At the end of the day, we have to figure out how to generate new sources of revenue because these players, they want higher salaries, and they're elite players, and they deserve high salaries, and we got to figure out how to not only pay them, but also keep prices affordable, keep our experience affordable, but also, hopefully put a situation where we can be fiscally responsible. We're very fortunate in Milwaukee to have an ownership group led by Mark Antonasio that ultimately the goal is to win the World Series. The mission statement of the Brewers is to win the World Series. It's not to make a profit. Now, having said, if we win the World Series, probably should do okay. Although I will tell you that when you have winning teams, those players get expensive and your things get expensive. But that's a good problem to have. Mark has always said the first thing is to win a World Series, and he's going to do whatever it takes from a financial perspective to make that happen. And what we're doing on the business operations side is always trying to generate as much revenue as we can in a sane and sensible manner to ensure that we have the ability to sign free agents, to make trades at the trade deadline later this month, and to improve the team. Obviously, the team on the field is the goal. If the team on the field is better, we're going to have more fans, we're going to have more excitement, we're going to reach our goal, and that's ultimately fulfilling our mission statement. Baseball is a very difficult industry. It's a very difficult place. Franchise values are very strong, which is great. But operationally, it's a very difficult operation to do well financially. Even in good years, your margins are so thin, and you have so much uncertainty in your team performance. And your biggest source of revenue, ticket sales, are really heavily dependent on your team performance. So you're setting all your budgets and committing to all your expenses in March in anticipation of what you think your team's going to do in the next 6 months. The team can surprise you, sometimes in a good way or sometimes in a bad way. But it's it's a hard business. It's a fascinating business. I get a lot of letters and emails and phone calls from young people out of college who want to get in the game, and I always encourage it. I said it can be a frustrating sport. You can't control the product of the field, and you can do all this great work, but at the end of the day, if the team doesn't perform well, it's somewhat for naught. But the reality is it's from my perspective, it's the best industry in the world. It's exciting to be part of something special like we're seeing with the Bucks and hopefully with the Brewers this year. To be part of an organization where you can achieve sort of greatness. People still talk about the 1982 Brewers and how many years ago was that? And half the people think that we won the World Series that year. We did not. We lost because our closer got hurt, and the Cardinals didn't. But the reality is when you win a championship, that sort of stays with ever, and that sort of cements not only your legacy, but it's also something that no matter what happens, it's something that you live with, and it's something you can look back personally, professionally, as a fan and say, I was part of the magic. And that's why, we do this, Tyler and all the executives, while we put in all the hours, we're at every game. We live and die with every pitch. Sometimes we throw things. That's why we watch a lot of the games outside of the view of the fans, because temper tantrums aren't really good for ticket sales. But we love working for the team. It's a civic institution. The ballpark is fantastic. Everybody in this room helped contribute to building and pay for it. And so we feel a stewardship over the facility, and we're so proud to be here and proud to call American Family Field our home. And the goal is to be here for generations to come. So nobody has fallen asleep, which is usually a good sign. But I would love to take questions and try to answer them as best I can. This is great. Yes, sir.
Rick, love the product you put onto the field. Miss smoke brisket stand, that was always good. Hope they come back. But what I really miss, we got spoiled last year watching a lot of baseball on television because that was our only option. And you do a beautiful job of covering it from every angle, slow motion, replay, everything. When something happens in the stadium, fans don't have that benefit. more in the stadium?
Yeah, I mean, does everybody hear the question? Okay, yeah, it's fascinating because when you watch an NFL game, you know, the referee will announce holding on, you know, and he'll announce what happened. In baseball, there's a lot of talk, and a lot of headphones, and then, you know, the umpire and a replay will either say safe or out, and there's not a lot of information. You know, it's a very legitimate criticism, and I do think there's ways for us to do a better job as an industry in communicating what's going on. I will tell you that I get frustrated sometimes at the replays. This will show my bias because sometimes I think the replay should take 20 seconds and not 2 minutes when it's obvious that the umpire either made the right call or the wrong call, but they still take 2 minutes. Or sometimes, to me, the call in the field is wrong, but they don't reverse it. And sometimes the call in the field is right and they reverse it. So we saw that this past weekend with a lot of replays and a lot of non-explanations. So I think that's an industry solution as opposed to anything we can do. One of the challenges with explanations is, unfortunately, sometimes the baseball rules are a little bit more complicated and the explanation may take a little bit more time. And then you're running into, you know, then the game's going to be 4 hours and 10 minutes long, and then I'm going to really have an issue. But it's absolutely true, and maybe there's something on the scoreboard. There's certainly more we can do to educate the fans of what's going on who are live in the stadium. Because you're right, on the television audience, you're absolutely getting the commentators saying, here's what the umpire is talking about, was his foot in the bag or not, and all that kind of stuff. And sort of the subtle rules can be explained much more cogently and intelligently on television and radio than they can in the live experience. But point well taken. I don't have an answer, but I agree with you. Yes, sir.
The different ideas to speed up the game and shorten the time. What do you think is most likely or most probable of those different ideas?
Yeah, speeding up the game. There's certainly no shortage of ideas. We've done a few things, obviously, with 7-inning doubleheaders, which is somewhat of a special rule that we adopted last year and there were in this year. Whether it continues next year, I don't know. Hopefully, we don't have as many doubleheaders. Speeding up the game, you know, we've tried some things, you know, but that really haven't helped. You know, the reduction in mound visits has been sort of not really that impactful. We try to get players to get to the batter's box faster. We're trying to get batters to step out of the batter's box less frequently. But the reality is old habits die hard, and it's an issue. You know, I think that, you know, frankly, there's been some radical ideas. I'm not sure I embrace these, but some people even talked about a 7-inning game as the norm. That would be a dramatic change to our game, which has been 9 innings since 1886 or thereabouts. So changing the game from 9 to 7 is going to be obvious. That's the obvious one, but it's also the most radical and the one that's most controversial. From my perspective, I would sort of look to do this, which is maybe counterintuitive to the game time issue, which is if we have more action, if we have more doubles and triples and more steals and more action, more balls in play, you may not reduce the duration of the game, but the perception from the fans will be it's not as long because there's more stuff going on. So actually, I am sort of focused on how we can make more action, more balls in play, even if it doesn't necessarily reduce the game duration, because the perception of our fans will be stuff's going on. You know, fans, if it's a 7-6 game and there's a lot of action, a lot of doubles and steals and great plays, the fans aren't going to be too upset if the game was 4 hours and 15 minutes. A 3-1 game with a lot of strikeouts, that's 4 hours. That's not acceptable in my view. So I think there's a lot of solutions, but to me, getting more balls in play will be the best one. Yep, right here.
Yeah, with the overall goal of increasing viewership and fans globally and in the country, how do you address the challenges of operating in Milwaukee when so many of the national sports media focuses so much more on your Los Angeles and New York big markets?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is we're always going to have a little bit of a challenge when we're trying to compete with the big markets, whether that's, you know, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. You know, in baseball, the market size has a direct correlation to your media revenues and other sources of revenue. So unlike the NFL, or even to the NBA, the market size of your franchise is definitely impacting what you can afford to pay and how much you can charge and how much revenue you can generate. Having said that, I would say that, we've always felt that we have some hidden advantages in Milwaukee. First of all, we're able to draw consistently among the top 10 franchises in attendance. This year, right now, even with the sort of weird year, we're 8th in Major League Baseball in attendance. In 2019, we were 8th in Major League Baseball attendance. So we're always generally in the top 10 to top 12. And that's the source of revenue largest for every franchise. Even the Yankees and Dodgers make the most of their money from admission revenue. So the fact that we can draw well despite our relatively small size gives us some advantages. The other thing is, some players enjoy playing here and do not enjoy playing in a big market because, frankly, the spotlight is different. Little things like a player can live here in the summer and actually enjoy the experience of living in Milwaukee. In LA and New York, it's a little different. So some players are just more acclimated to perform better outside of a big market. Eventually, it's a challenge. We're always going to be looking to the bigger markets. They have more revenue, more opportunities. We're going to have to be smarter. David Stearns, our general manager, is going to have to be better than the GMs in those other cities and those other teams. And we're going to have less margin for error. So we embrace it. We live with it. I don't think about it at all. It's sort of, I'm in Milwaukee. I love it here. I love our ballpark. I love our fan base. So we'll deal with it. Yep.
You mentioned streaming, and I understand locally there's been some challenges with certain stations not being in cable network packages. What involvement and influence do you and the club have with those streaming devices or streaming companies and cable companies?
Yeah, I mean the problem we're seeing, as many people know, is the entity that holds our rights, Bally's Sports, is the one that has the exclusive negotiations with all of the cable, satellite, and streaming services. And if they can't reach deals, then you're going to be dark. So YouTube, Hulu, a Dish, those are all services that used to carry the Brewers games, no longer carry the Brewers games. And that's hundreds of thousands of viewers just in Wisconsin who are no longer consuming our games. We have constant conversations with our friends at Bally's, and I would say it's more persuasion as opposed to any real contractual or economic power. We don't really have the right to force them to come to a deal. The government does not get involved in forcing cable companies or streaming services and regional sports networks to reach deals. I don't think we want to do that. So you're dealing with a landscape where it takes two willing parties to reach a deal, and they have not been able to do so. It's extremely complicated, and I won't bore you with the details, but I will just say this. The deals that Bally's and all the regional sports networks have to make are interlocked. And changes in the economics with one partner can have implications in how the relationship and the finances of existing deals. So it's not as a matter of just going to Bally's and say, guys, cut your best deal with Hulu so we can get that. If you make a deal with Hulu, it could impact their current deals in the economics. It's extremely complicated, and it's a lot of money. Yep.
What is the scuttlebutt? Why does people talk 100 miles an hour now? There used to be 3 of them, now there's like 3 of them.
Yeah, I mean, the game has changed dramatically. Sure, the question is how'd you get to be such a brilliant speaker? Years back, no. How has the game changed from not too long ago, you had just a few pitchers who could throw 100 miles an hour. And now you seem like, every pitcher in baseball not only can throw 100 miles an hour, but they also throw tremendous change-ups, off-speed pitches that are impossible to hit. One of the things that baseball did recently during the season was to enforce the foreign substances rule. So you had some pitchers basically creating their own brew of sticky substances, whether it's sunscreen and rosin or pine tar. They were creating a surface on the ball that would cause it to do some pretty funky things, and baseball has put a stop to that. And I think in short order has generally eradicated that part. So I think you're starting to see some uptick in hitting and offense. But there's no question, pitchers now are throwing harder. much more frequently. The game has changed. Starters used to go 7, 8 innings. They used to pitch every 4 days, and it was a badge of honor for a starter to pitch 280 innings a year. Now starters go 6 innings every 5 days, and then you've got these relievers who come in and pitch 1 inning and blow people away. It's the nature of the game. I don't see that changing. We're also seeing more injuries with pitchers. So think about it. Pitchers who throw 100 miles an hour, they're getting hurt more. And in the old days, baseball, you had 3 or 4 batters in the lineup that were automatic outs, that were your shortstops, your third basemen, your second basemen. Baseball looked at those players as defense first, don't worry about the hitting. So really good pitchers could sort of take a few batters off. And they'll tell you that. And the Warren Spahns and the Sandy Koufaxes of the world would tell you there were 2 or 3 batters every lineup, but I didn't have to throw my best stuff and I could get those guys out. Now everybody's capable of hitting a home run. Even your lowest shortstop can hit a home run or is dangerous, and you can't take outs away. So I don't think that's going to change. What I think we can do is get rid of the shifts, so you have more balls in play, and do other things to maybe change the strike zone. There's things you can do, change the height of the mound. There's things you can do to help the hitters. We do need to help the hitters. Baseball fans love offense, and right now it's a defense game. Yep. I can't hit one, but maybe I can handle yours. See in our team? Oh yeah. I mean those odds. The question is the odds makers, the prognosticators, the experts. Every day they will assess a team's percentage chance of making the postseason, and it changes daily. It changes by whether you win or lose, or by the other team in your division wins or loses. So you'll have different percentages. I think now at the All-Star break we are the favorite in the division to make the postseason. It's based on matchups. It's based on perceptions of what we're going to do. It's perceptions of injury risk. It's perceptions on players having bad first halves, going back to their norms and their performance. So a lot of players who are underperforming on a team, the prognosticators will say, well, they're going to likely go to their historic norms. So that means they're going to be better in the second half. As a collective unit, that means they'll win more games. And, they do a lot of the analysis. But you can really go crazy trying to look at those odds. And from my perspective, I take those with a little grain of salt, because they're just some people. At the end of the day, the games are won or lost on the field. We have an interesting division. We have the Cubs have slumped, the Cardinals are slumping. I never count those teams out. And the Reds are playing very good baseball, and they took it to us this weekend. So we have a chance to return the favor in Cincinnati next week. And we best do that. Otherwise, I'm going to call David Stearns and start complaining. But the reality is the season is so long, and there's so many games and so many plays with each game that you sort of can go crazy trying to figure out all the different nuances and percentage chances of making it here and there. That's why baseball is the best game, because there's so much activity and so many games, so many opportunities for good and bad. We have time for one more question, or how are we doing on time? All right, right there.
Question about substitution. I get up as a pitcher, I'm out of the game after I have that. Is there any talk about doing some type of substituting where people can re-enter the game?
No. No. Yeah, the short answer, no. The long answer, yeah. Baseball is sort of one of those games, unlike the NBA, the NHL, and the NFL. Soccer is like baseball, where if you take a player out, he's out. There's no free substitution. It's one of those things where if you were inventing the game of baseball today, you might not have that rule, but that was invented, 100 years ago. And again, baseball is a traditional game where a lot of the rules, like 60 feet, 6 inches between the pitcher's mound and home plate, that's what they are. I have not heard anybody talk about that. It'd be interesting. There'd be some very interesting strategy if you could have free substitution. I think it would definitely change the game. Yeah. Frank? God bless you.
Essentially governs every sport. And why can't Major League Baseball go to the same rules that my little grandson has free immeasurably, and I don't think we're hurt.
Wow. So if 3 foul balls and you're out, right? It's 3 swings, 3 hacks. Yeah, I will tell you this. A lot of fans will be sad because there's no foul balls in the stands to catch. Number 2, if you really want to make the game pitching friendly and kill the hitters, that's a really good way to do it. So I want more offense. I think if you had 3 foul balls and you're out, you would see some tremendously low scoring and even more troublesome games. But I appreciate your insights, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick, for your insights into the Brewers, a team so many of us in this room have grown to love. So thank you. In honor of leaders like you who come to speak to our club, we will make a donation to the YWCA of Southeastern Wisconsin, whose mission is eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. Please join us next Tuesday, where we'll have Craig Gilbert, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel's Washington Bureau Chief and longtime political writer. And please make note that Tuesday, July 27th, we will not be meeting here in Memorial Hall, but as Kent mentioned earlier, we will be meeting at the Milwaukee Urban Stables. Don't forget to take the parking passes on your table if you parked in the north lot. And remember, committee sign-up forms, they're on your tables. Feel free to send them in, or you can leave them right on the front table on your way out. Let's go out and do some good in the world. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.